listening to 102.3 HFM. It's the Musicals Interlude with me, Owen Brooks, here on 102.3 HFM. Well, if you've been a regular listener to my shows over the past year or so, you'll know that I changed it to the Musicals Interlude a year ago, January. And as part of last year's run of events, let's say, we tried something a little bit different on the programme, and it was a radio play. You don't hear many of those on the radio at all really now, but I did those in conjunction with my guest in the studio this evening. I'm joined by Malcolm Noble. Good evening, Malcolm.
Good evening, Owen. Good evening, everyone.
Welcome back to the studio. I know you've been here once or twice. So it's great to have you back. Now, before we talk about the plays, just tell our listeners a little bit about yourself if they don't know who you are.
Okay, well, I run the bookshop in Coventry Road, and I've managed to write quite a few detective novels now. I must be between 15 and 20, I've lost count. Usually one a year of those, and I get involved in one or two other writing projects. And of course, the thing I'm most excited about these days are this will be the fourth radio play that I've done with you.
With all your novels, what gives you the inspiration? Do you have background in sort of detective work? Or?
I used to be a policeman. While I don't draw on that too much, I do draw on the stories that the old policemen used to tell me. So I enjoyed that. But I like to gather up a sense of place if I can. So I usually think of an old city, very much wrote about Portsmouth. At the moment, I'm working on the third book in a series, which is based, people might think, in 1938 Winchester, although I possibly couldn't comment on that. And so really I like to capture that sense of place if I can, and the communities, and how people related to each other.
And do you have like a big readership, a big following for the work that you've done?
Yeah, I've got as many as I can cope with. I suppose of my readers, I mean, this is going to sound very small, but I suppose 80 of my readers are in touch with me.
Okay.
And I feel that that's pretty much as many as I could cope with as regards answering emails and remembering birthdays and whatever, you know. Not that I get 80 emails a day, please don't think it's like that. But there's about 80 in the address book. And I'm saying that because they get the newsletter. And I'm very comfy with that. And there's a lot of interaction goes on, a lot of, I suppose, an element in each of the books now is actually drawn from things that I know that my readers want me to write about.
Of course.
So I will have a reference to an orchestra, or perhaps a reference to a night out that they can remember, and I'll slip that in quietly. And
ultimately the idea is you want to do what your readers want, because then they'll purchase it, of course.
Well, they spent a lot more money on it than I have, and some of them have got fantastic collections. Not just of my, books, but of newspaper cuttings and letters which I've written to them, and little gifts and everything. They've got fantastic collections.
So you said you're a novel writer, but did you actually originally write radio plays, or is that something you moved into?
No, that's something I moved into. The first play that I did with you was really a development from a short story, which hadn't gone anywhere. So I've always enjoyed dialogue. But I found writing a radio play required a lot more discipline.
Yeah.
You can only have so many people in the studio at the same time. You've really got to balance it out. You can't have one person flogging themselves to death. I mean, they've got to have a break. And of course the timing's got to be pretty much spot on. So you haven't got as much freedom to express yourself, I don't think, in a play. But the discipline's quite enjoyable, actually. You've got quite a strict brief to work on.
So about the three that we did last year, just tell, if listeners didn't happen to listen for whatever reason, just give listeners a bit. Exactly. I don't know why they missed it. We did reprises on a Sunday night and everything. Just give the listeners a bit of a background as to what the stories previously have done.
The detective has been a lady called Lizzie Waldron, who is a very self-opinionated, chirpy lady, a bit chippy, you might say.
Yeah.
And she often gets involved in cases which are brought to her attention by her mother. Her mother played a strong part in two of the plays. And there's this relationship, this sort of sparky relationship between a very dissatisfied, slightly overbearing mother and a stroppy, firm-standing lady in her 20s or 30s. And there's only so much of that you can develop in a 25-minute play, but we try our best, you know. And a number of people have spoken to me about bringing the play scripts together and publishing them as a book, but I'm not quite sure. I'm not quite sure what the response to that would be, really, because people don't generally buy plays, do they? You know, plays are for listening to.
For listening to, yeah.
So I've enjoyed it very much.
And what sort of feedback have you had from people who have listened, or?
Well, I've learned. I started off with reasonably short scenes, and people wanted longer scenes. But generally, it's some very good feedback. Much better than I expected, because very much the new boy on the block, really. And a nice reaction has been from the players, who are always keen, it seems, to take part and enjoy the parts, and they bring something else to the plays.
You've kind of led into my next question.
Yeah.
The people you've had in the cast so far, how did you sort of obtain those people, and what sort of feedback have they given to you, because they're the ones actually reading your work?
Mainly it was from I advertised it on Twitter, and that brought Kate Gamble and her son Jack, and they knew Mary Orton, the other person who plays with us. And then Harbour Theatre were kind enough to put an announcement in their newsletter, and that brought a couple of others on. So very pleased with that. And Chris Pryor, I'm not sure, I think you may have introduced Chris Pryor to us.
Yes, regular listeners to the show will probably know that the Market Harbour Musical Theatre, another of our local theatre groups, has actually suspended itself for now to have a bit of a think about where they are, and Chris Pryor is obviously one of the people mainly involved in that particular group. So 3 last year, we've got one coming up, so tell us a little bit more about the next one.
This was called Non-Stop to Waverley, and it is slightly different in that the detective is off scene, but 4 characters are placed in a railway carriage from London to Edinburgh and told to sort out the murder or solve the murder before they get there.
Okay.
And all sorts of things happen. People disappear and reappear, and there's a monkey appears in the place somehow.
Okay.
And plenty of things happen, and eventually they sort out who done it, just in time.
And I expect it's the butler, because it usually is.
Well, it usually is.
But there's no butler, I don't think.
Well, no, but we can work on that.
So who is actually playing the roles in these? Is it the same cast as you've had always?
Basically, it's the same cast. It's Mary Orton and Kate Gamble, who's been with me from the beginning, really. Chris Pryor, as I mentioned, and I'm absolutely delighted. We've got a new person joining us, Daniel Shawley, who is going to play the male character in the play. Really chuffed about that. I think people will know him locally, so there may be a few who will want to tune in and listen to him.
Great. We'll make sure we give that a bit of a plug. So when is the play going to be performed?
11th of May.
Right.
On your show. It's obviously a Thursday, and we usually strike off about 7:30, don't we?
Try our best, yes.
And if all goes well, folks, we'll have it finished by 8 o'clock. If not, you'll never know who done it.
Because we have to play the news, don't we?
have to play the news.
And then I understand that Nick Shaw will kindly be doing a reprise for us at the end of his 7-day catch-up on the Sunday, which will be the 14th, I think. So once this play's done, what's the plans for the future? Is there going to be another detective play?
I'm rather excited. I'm very excited that in October, if all goes well, we're going to have a sort of Jane Austen pastiche.
Okay.
I won't tell you too much about it, but it's called Nothing to Do with Emma.
Right,
Emma Woodhouse. And the good thing is, it's all going to be younger players. So, let's say under 18s, it's all going to be emerging the stars of tomorrow.
Okay, and those people are being sourced?
They're being sourced locally from 2 drama groups that we've got in the town.
Great.
And really excited about that. Really excited about that. And it would be lovely if in 20 years' time, a real big star said that they started off in this studio with one of our plays. That would be great, wouldn't it?
That's what we'd like to hear, definitely.
Yeah.
So, remind listeners about that in a moment, but in terms of yourself, in terms of your writing, in terms of the way you plays, what's your plans for the future?
I am so busy this year, it is not true. I can feel my legs getting shorter every day with all the running around I'm doing. I'm giving a few talks later on in the year. I have just had a pamphlet published criticising the work of John Buchan, nicely criticising him. Then I've had this year's novel, Lightly in the Cat House, and there'll be another one, fingers crossed, should be coming out before Christmas.
Oh, right, okay.
So, plenty to do.
Very busy, as you say. Yeah. And still running your shop in the meantime. So remind our listeners where that is. Just get a free plug-in.
That's behind the chemist in Coventry Road, Christine's Book Cabin. Been there for 20 years on the 23rd of June.
Wow, that doesn't seem possible.
It doesn't. No. Do I get a pension?
I don't know. You're going to have to speak to the boss, I think. She's not responding, so I think it's probably a no, I'm guessing. So just remind our listeners when the next play is going to be broadcast again.
Okay, it's the Thursday, the 11th of May, 7:30 on the Owen Brooks musical interlude.
Thank you, Malcolm, for joining me in the studio. Looking forward to that. I think it'll be another exciting night. It's a question I hadn't asked, but doing it live, aren't we? So there's a little bit of an extra element to it then.
That's the buzz to it. That's what really makes it good. They're all live, apart from the Sunday night, of course, but it's all live.
All live.
Which is what we want.
Fantastic. Thanks for joining me in the studio. All the best for the radio play, and that will be in 2 weeks' time, and of course we'll be reminding you about
the world of Malcolm Noble's crime fiction.